Good evening. My name is Stephen Bowman, and I'm doing a tribute for my grandfather, Stephen Buggs. Big shoes to fill. When I was born, my parents gave me big shoes to fill by naming me Stephen. They named me after a man who was driven to succeed his entire life, and I hope to follow his example as I leave high school and move on to college and the real world. I'm standing here tonight to tell you about the man I was named after, my grandfather, Stephen Buggs. He was the first in his family to attend a university. He graduated with a degree in journalism from the University of Wisconsin in Madison in 1965. My grandpa worked as a reporter for several daily newspapers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and moved to New Zealand for a short time to write there. After being shot at in 1967 during race riots in the Milwaukee area, he decided to go back to school to become a lawyer. In 1970, he was admitted to Wisconsin State Bar. He worked as an attorney for 48 years, retiring from his practice in 2007. He continued to work as city attorney for 2 towns until 2014. I look up to him not only because of his successful career, but because of the time he has spent with me and the memorable experiences we've had. Grandpa taught me the game of chess so long ago that I don't even remember when I started playing. It's always been our thing, playing chess together. He used to beat me all the time when I was younger. But recently, either he's gotten slower or I've gotten faster. Maybe a little bit of both. Chess isn't the only game we like to play. Whenever our family is together, everyone ends up getting roped into a game of Monopoly or Parcheesi, or, as Grandpa likes to call them, Killer Monopoly and Killer Parcheesi. Because things can get pretty heated and intense during board games. And he always plays the dirtiest. I'll always remember the little moments from these experiences. Winning the 3rd game of chess in a row, or arguing over a deal in Monopoly. Grandpa taught me to value my family and cherish all the time I have with them. My grandparents have lived in the same house in Platteville, Wisconsin for decades. I've moved around a lot, but we used to visit them many times a year, especially when we lived only a few hours away. One of my grandpa's favorite activities to do with me and my brother was fishing. I loved it, and I remember looking forward to going to the store and scooping out the minnows that we would use as bait into a little styrofoam container. We would go and stand out on the dock for hours, catching fish from the pond. Looking back, I am so thankful to him for being involved so much in my life. I enjoyed going to their house, and pulling into their driveway felt like arriving at a second home. I keep a mental list of conversations I've had with people that I believe will be very important for me in years to come. One of these happened this summer, when my grandparents came to visit us at our new home in Vermont. I've always known my grandpa was a self-made man, and that he worked hard his entire life. And I want to do exactly that with my own life. So, I asked him to tell me his story, to tell me how he did it, where he came from, and how he got where he wanted to go. What he told me was powerful, and has helped me form my path for the future. Grandpa told me that everyone in his family went to work at the grocery store they owned. But he didn't want that. He loved writing. He was the first in his family to even graduate high school, and his counselor and parents tried to discourage him from going to college. He told me about being a journalist and working through college so he could afford to stay. He told me about swiping an apple or a piece of sandwich meat from the cafeteria he worked at because he was hungry. He told me about living in New Zealand and making the decision to move back to the US after getting drafted. He told me about failing the hearing test and deciding to hitchhike back to Wisconsin from Las Vegas because, I quote, "I could have paid for a way home, but I was having too much fun." He told me about walking into the dean's office and taking the test to be admitted to law school on the spot. He told me about being an attorney and working hard, long hours. He told me about his time as city manager and how he didn't really know what he was doing. He took me through the path of his life, through his prime, and into the phase where his life finally began to wind down and become slower and more peaceful. Hearing about his experiences moved me. He faced life head on, and if he wanted something, gave 100% and went after it until he had it. I consider my grandfather to be the ultimate role model for my life in the future. After that conversation, he looked at me and said, "You can do anything you want. Never let anybody tell you what you should do or who you should be." Those words will never leave.